I'd just wrapped up a grueling day on the job site, the kind where the sun dips early and leaves you bone-tired, when those familiar red and blue flashes lit up my rearview mirror. I figured it was a routine stop, maybe a speeding ticket to cap off the misery. But sometimes life doesn't send a gentle reminder. It hits the sirens and forces you to pull over. Hey, I'm Michael, and you're listening to True Turns. Real moments that stick with you forever. My name's Brian Cole. I'm 38, running a modest construction outfit on the outskirts of Denver. Lately, the workload's been relentless. Rushed timelines, crews snapping at each other, invoices piling up like unpaid debts. I usually clock out way past sunset, cruise home with the radio off, and crash while some late-night show drones in the background. Ever since the divorce hit 2 years back, the place feels emptier than it should. No footsteps in the hall, no one to share the silence with. That particular night, the clouds hung heavy and low, choking the sky while cars inched along the highway. All I craved was my couch and a cold beer. The dash read 8:42 when the lights started dancing behind me. Heart sinking, I eased onto the gravel shoulder, killed the music, and gripped the wheel. She approached with a sure step, her face composed beneath the hat's shadow. "Good evening, sir. License and registration?" Her tone was even, all business. I passed them over, masking my frustration. I was only going a bit fast, I grumbled. She glanced at her device. 76 in a 55, that's not a bit. I exhaled sharply, pressing fingers to my forehead. Rough day at the office. I manage a building company. Constant pressure slipped my mind. She held my gaze a moment longer. "Pressure doesn't excuse endangering others, Mr. Cole." Then she headed back to her cruiser to process the citation. I waited, tapping the steering column, catching my worn-out reflection in the mirror. Bags under my eyes, stubble creeping in, that faded wedding band still clinging to my finger like an old scar. It once symbolized forever. Now it was just inertia. She returned, and I lowered the glass again. Handing me the paper, she said, "Court dates printed on the reverse. Ease up on the pedal." "Got it," I replied, forcing civility. "Appreciate it." Her eyes lingered on my hand. "That band, still taken?" I shook my head. "Ex-wife. Haven't bothered removing it. Old routine." A subtle grin broke through, warm and unexpected, crinkling the corners of her eyes. She adjusted her stance and murmured, "Minus the ring, I might have jotted my digits on the bottom." I blinked, caught off guard, unsure if I'd heard right. She tucked her pen away, gave a curt nod, and strode off. The exchange couldn't have exceeded a couple minutes, yet it stretched in my mind. I watched her in the mirror, the subtle sway of her ponytail in the breeze as she slid into her vehicle. She flicked a brief look back before pulling away. I lingered on the roadside, the citation warm in my palm, the quiet closing in like fog. Part of me wanted to chuckle at the absurdity. Another felt a spark I'd forgotten existed, a tiny jolt against the monotony. Back home, I tossed the ticket on the counter, poured a whiskey, and nursed it as the cubes dissolved. No name, no badge number I'd noted, but her words looped endlessly, steady voice, that playful edge, the hint of connection in an otherwise sterile stop. Oddly, the fine didn't sting. If anything, I was grateful for the interruption. The days blurred into a fortnight, but that roadside snippet refused to fade. The creased paper sat untouched amid mail and keys, triggering flashes of her whenever I passed by. Those late evenings alone, the house echoing with nothing but the fridge hum. I'd replay the scene, her confident walk, the way she broke protocol just enough to remind me I wasn't invisible. Then, one overcast Friday, I ducked into a bustling cafe near the site for a quick caffeine hit. The spot teemed with municipal folks, badges, hard hats, the aroma of fresh grounds thick in the air. It sat a stone's throw from the precinct. I grabbed a large drip and leaned against the pickup counter. That's when I spotted her, off duty, perched by the rain-streaked pane, thumbing her screen. Hair tied loosely, no vest or cap, just a soft hoodie, fitted pants, and that serene poise intact. Hesitation gripped me, but instinct won. I crossed the room. "Officer," I said, a grin tugging my lips. Promise I'm under the limit today. She glanced up, recognition dawning, then that same understated smile surfaced. Good to know. Left the pad at the station. Mind if I join? Your ticket cost me, but it sparked some overdue reflection, beyond just road rules. She let out a light laugh. Not my typical legacy. I claimed the seat across. The ring quip threw me. Post-divorce, I'd stopped noticing much. You nudged me back toward human interaction. Her expression eased. Out of line, professionally. Impulse. But real, I countered. And welcome. A comfortable beat passed. She swirled her mug. Rosa Martinez. Brian Cole, though you've got that on file. She smirked. Had a hunch. From there, words flowed effortlessly. She shared glimpses of patrol life. A decade on the force almost. The drain of being idolized or dodged. The rare in-between. I opened up about blueprints gone awry. Clients flipping plans mid-build. The hollow evenings in a house built for two. Solo now? She probed. 2 years single, no little ones. She took the cat and headed northwest. I kept the mortgage and the echoes. Rosa's gaze softened. I reset last spring myself. Breakups leave similar voids. We adapt eventually. We lingered nearly 90 minutes. The cafe's clamor receding. The hiss of steam, muffled orders, rain pattering like soft applause. It felt effortless, like rediscovering an old friend in a new light. She checked the time, posture straightening. Shift's calling. I rose with her. Thanks for skipping the cuffs over my lame puns. You're warming up, she teased. A breath then. Rain check on coffee, your treat? Absolutely. We exited into the damp chill, pavement glistening. She shrugged on her coat, radio chirping as she neared her marked unit. Stay safe, Brian. And remember, eyes on the speedometer. I chuckled. Knowing you're out there helps. With a final, lingering smile, she was gone, tail lights fading into the downpour. But the story didn't end at the curb. That coffee became the first of many unplanned pit stops. A week later, I happened to swing by the same shop during her usual off-shift window. She was there, nursing a latte, and waved me over without hesitation. We traded stories deeper this time, her growing up in a big family in Pueblo, the pull toward law enforcement after a cousin's close call, me confessing how the business started in my garage, the divorce blindsiding me amid a boom year. Laughter came easier, silences less heavy. One evening, after a particularly chaotic day, delayed permits, a crane malfunction, she texted. We'd exchanged numbers over pastries. Rough one. Need a non-ticket distraction? I suggested a quiet pub nearby, neutral ground. Over burgers and local brews, barriers dropped further. She admitted the job's toll, adrenaline highs, paperwork lows, the isolation of shift work. I shared the fear of the company folding, the nights questioning if solitude was permanent. That ring's finally off, I noted, showing my bare hand. She raised her glass. Progress. Months rolled on. Coffee turned to dinners, dinners to hikes in the foothills where cell service died and conversations thrived. She taught me basic self-defense moves in an empty gym lot. I showed her how to read architectural plans over takeout blueprints. The house grew less quiet, her laughter echoing off walls that once swallowed mine. We navigated the awkwardness of her colleagues spotting us, my crew ribbing me about dating the law, but it built something solid, deliberate. One crisp autumn night, parked under the same gray skies that started it all, she handed me a folded paper. No fine this time. Inside, a simple note. If you'd taken the ring off sooner, we'd have missed the story. Glad you didn't. I pulled her close, the city lights flickering like those long-ago sirens. Fate hadn't just flashed its lights. It rerouted the whole map. I lingered on the sidewalk, eyes fixed on the fading red glow of her taillights as they melted into the downpour. The ride back to the office felt oddly buoyant, as if a weight I'd carried for months had shifted. What began as a mundane morning now pulsed with possibility, like I'd cracked open a door sealed by time and neglect. That evening I caught myself glancing at my phone, absurdly wishing for a notification I had no reason to expect. I hadn't even gotten her number. It was foolish, sure, But something about her, direct, steady, with a quiet compassion, stirred me. I picked up the ticket from the counter where it had sat like a grudge. For the first time, I grinned at it. It wasn't just a penalty anymore. It was the spark that introduced me to someone who made my pulse quicken. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle shifts in my routine. I shaved every morning without fail. I stopped bolting out the door with just coffee in hand. The emptiness of my house, once oppressive, felt less suffocating. Maybe it was fleeting. Maybe it was the start of something. For the first time in ages, I dared to imagine a second encounter. It was a biting Tuesday night. The city hushed under a blanket of cold. I dozed off on the couch, the TV casting faint shadows, when a sharp rap at the door jolted me awake. I blinked, disoriented, half convinced it was part of a dream. Then it came again, insistent. Opening the door, I found two officers on the porch, one clutching a notepad, the other aiming a flashlight at my car out by the street. The senior one spoke up. "Evening, sir. Apologies for the hour. There's been a small collision." A car skidded on the slick pavement and clipped yours. "No injuries," he added. I scrubbed a hand over my face, still groggy. "You're serious?" I grumbled, stepping into the chill. The night air stung like ice. My car's back end was crumpled just enough to annoy me. Then a voice cut through from behind the patrol car. I said, "It's not catastrophic." I turned. There she was. Officer Martinez, pen in hand, hair pulled back beneath her cap. Even in the sallow streetlight, her face was unmistakable. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. "Mr. Cole." I let out a short chuckle. "Officer Martinez, you've got a knack for popping up in my orbit." She pressed her lips together, fighting a smile. "Seems I'm drawn to repeat customers." The older officer stepped away to deal with the other driver, leaving us by the cruiser's hood. She started the paperwork, asking for the standard details: insurance card, vehicle registration, any interior damage. Her voice was even, all business, but a subtle kindness threaded through it, different from our first meeting. "You holding up?" she asked, low enough that only I could hear. "Yeah, just wiped out. You yanked me out of a deep sleep." Her mouth twitched. "Could have been worse." "At least you're not the one getting cited tonight." I snorted. "Give it time." She glanced up, her gaze lingering a beat too long. "You deflect with humor when you're rattled." "Guilty. Keeps me sane." She nodded, scribbling. "Not the worst coping mechanism." When the other officer returned, Rosa passed him the forms and said she'd wrap up in the car. I watched her stride back to the vehicle, posture straight, all focus. For reasons I couldn't name, I stayed outside, leaning against the porch railing, listening to the cruiser's idle hum and the muted chatter of the radio. Minutes later, she emerged and approached me again. "Paperwork's done. Call your insurance tomorrow. It's straightforward. Minor damage." "Appreciate it," I said. "And for not hauling my car off in the middle of the night." She laughed under her breath. "Don't thank me yet. You were out cold enough to sleep through a tornado." "I was. Now I'm wide awake, wondering why you keep materializing in my chaos." Her face softened. "Maybe fate's decided you need a babysitter. Or maybe I need a decent espresso." That earned a real laugh, bright and unguarded. She fidgeted with her clipboard, adjusting a page that didn't need it. "Watch what you ask for, Brian." I cocked my head. "Is that a yes?" She didn't reply immediately. The street was still only the far-off swish of tires on wet asphalt. Then, "Only if you keep it under 55. Before I could respond, her radio crackled to life. She exhaled, muttered about a call nearby, and tipped her chin toward the cruiser. "Back to it." "Story of your life," I said. She started to leave, then pivoted, her profile glowing in the headlights. "Get some rest. It's just a scratch." "Just a scratch," I echoed. She paused, as if on the verge of saying more, then gave a small shake of her head and climbed in. The lights flared once, and she was gone. I stayed there until the engine's rumble dissolved into the night. The darkness felt altered, hollow, but not lonely. Back inside, the old ticket still sat amid scattered mail. I lifted it, smirked, and set it down gently. My phone buzzed minutes later. Unknown number. I opened it. Coffee's on me next time. I stared, exhaustion vanishing. I didn't text back. I just sat in the dim kitchen, grinning like a kid who'd found a secret. I didn't answer that night. Read it a dozen times, maybe more, but couldn't find the words. Morning came, and I drafted replies, stiff ones, bold ones, all trashed. Finally, I'm in. She responded in under 2 minutes. Saturday, 10 a.m., Harbor Cafe. By Saturday, nerves had me in a chokehold. I hadn't done anything close to a date in nearly 3 years. Shaved twice. Swapped shirts like a nervous prom date. Arrived early, claimed a window table, and pretended to read the menu. When she walked in, the cafe's chatter seemed to dip. No uniform, just a crisp white shirt tucked into dark jeans, a camel-colored jacket soft against her frame. Her hair spilled loose, catching the light. I stood too fast, nearly knocking over the chair. "Hey, Officer Martinez." She smiled, eyes crinkling. "Rosa's fine today. You're off the clock." We ordered, black coffee for me, a latte for her, and settled in. At first it was easy, her wild traffic stop tales, my stories of clients who treated blueprints like wish lists. Laughter came naturally, then the air shifted. She swirled her spoon longer than necessary, then said, "You mentioned the divorce hit you hard. What's the story, if it's not too much?" I exhaled. We just drifted. Years of the same loop. Work, takeout, silence. One day I realized we hadn't shared a real laugh in forever. She found someone who showed up. Can't fault her. I was a ghost in my own house. She listened, eyes steady. I know that drift. My ex didn't cheat, but he made me feel like background noise. Said the badge never left my hip. Came home one day to an empty closet and a post-it on the fridge. We let the quiet settle, watching pedestrians hurry past. The rawness between us felt safe, like we'd both stopped pretending. "That ring joke," she said, a shy grin tugging her mouth. Half kidding, half testing the water. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "Glad you were wrong," I said. Her gaze dropped to her cup, a faint flush rising. "You're tough to pin down, Brian. I read people for a living, speeders, scared kids, liars. But you—" "Still under construction," I said. "But being around you feels like the first steady breath I've taken in years." Her smile bloomed, unguarded. "That's nice to know." We slid into lighter waters, favorite songs. Hers, old school salsa. Mine, classic rock. The city's hidden coffee gyms. Her childhood chasing lizards in the New Mexico dust. My half-baked plan to restore a rundown cabin up north. Time warped. 2 hours vanished. She checked her watch and winced. "Shift starts soon." "The city's helpless without you," I teased. She rose, shrugging on her jacket, then paused. "I don't usually blur the lines like this, but I want to see you again. Not over caffeine." "Dinner then," I said, too fast. "My treat. No badge required." She laughed, bright and free. "It's a date." Outside, the morning was sharp, sunlight glinting off passing cars. At her car, she stopped, turned, and reached out, her fingers brushing mine, deliberate, warm. The contact lingered, a silent promise. "Text me when you're free," she said. "I will," I managed. She slid into the driver's seat, gave a small wave, and pulled away. I stood on the sidewalk long after her car disappeared, the ghost of her touch still on my skin. That evening, I cooked for the first time in months. Nothing fancy, just pasta and sauce from scratch. The house smelled alive. I left the ticket on the counter, no longer a relic of regret, but a bookmark in a chapter I hadn't expected to write. My phone sat quiet, but I wasn't checking it every 5 minutes anymore. Whatever this was, it didn't need to be rushed. It was enough to know Saturday had happened and another night was coming. The next week unfolded in small, bright moments. A text from her mid-shift. "Caught a guy claiming his dog was driving. Miss your laugh." I sent back a photo of the dent in my car, freshly buffed out at the shop. All better. "Dinner soon?" She replied with a time and place. Thursday, 7:30, a quiet Italian spot downtown. I spent the days before lighter on my feet, humming while I sketched plans at the office. noticing the way sunlight slanted through my kitchen window in the mornings. Thursday night, I arrived early again, ordered a bottle of Red to breathe, and waited. When she walked in, the room tilted. Dark green dress, hair pinned loosely, a nervous smile that matched my own. We talked until the candles burned low, about fears we didn't voice to anyone else, about the small dreams we'd shelved. Over tiramisu, she reached across the table and laced her fingers through mine. No uniforms, no accidents, no tickets, just us. Walking her to her car later, the city hummed around us, distant horns, laughter spilling from bars, the faint scent of rain on pavement. She leaned against the door, eyes searching mine. "This feels careful," she said. "But good careful." I nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, good careful." She rose on her toes, pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, and whispered, "Text me when you get home." I did. She replied with a single heart emoji. I fell asleep with the phone on my chest, the ticket finally filed away in a drawer, not forgotten but no longer the center of the story. Her fingers grazed mine for the briefest moment, a whisper of contact that froze the world in its tracks. "Lucky you didn't send some cringe-worthy text that night," she teased, her smile cutting through the evening chill. "I nearly did," I confessed. "You'd have slapped me with a citation for terrible game." "Likely," she replied, eyes sparkling as she tugged open her cruiser door. "But I might have cut you slack with a verbal warning." She slid behind the wheel and vanished into the dusk, leaving me rooted to the sidewalk, grinning like an idiot. Sleep evaded me that night, not from anxiety, but from the loop in my head. Her unguarded stories of old wounds, the raw truth in her gaze, the way her hand had lingered against mine a heartbeat longer than necessary. Something dormant stirred. I wanted to be more. Not to win her, but because she'd reminded me the capacity was still there. I had no map for what came next, yet for the first time since the divorce papers were signed, tomorrow felt like a promise. 3 months slipped by since that roadside coffee. Rosa had woven herself into the fabric of my days. Sunrise texts, stolen phone calls between her patrols, late-night plates of whatever we could throw together when calendars aligned. It wasn't fireworks, it was embers, slow, deliberate, the kind of warmth two people cultivate once they admit the chill of solitude. I cataloged her rhythms, 3 reckless sugars in her coffee, a soft hum before the radio crackled. The way she always clocked every exit in a room. She blamed the job, but I saw the deeper current, vigilant, protective, forever scanning the horizon for the people she loved. That Friday I planned a quiet gesture with weight. The diner sat on the same lonely stretch where her lights had first pinned me. I reserved the corner booth with the cracked vinyl seat, arrived 20 minutes early, punctuality is my armor, and laid a crisp white envelope beside the laminated menu. When she pushed through the door, jacket half-zipped and exhaustion etched under her eyes, my pulse still stuttered. "Rough tour?" I asked. 15 hours, she exhaled, dropping into the seat. "But this view just upgraded the day." I nudged the envelope across the formica. "Before you arrest me for littering, it's not official paperwork." She arched a brow, tore it open. Inside, a photocopy of the original citation, every line blacked out except my new scrawl. Violation, capturing my focus without a permit. Penalty, 1 standing dinner date every Friday, no appeals. She read it twice, lips twitching until a full laugh escaped. "You framed the real one, didn't you?" "Guilty," I said. "First fine I ever paid gladly." She folded the paper like evidence and tucked it into her pocket. "Bribery still frowned upon, Mr. Cole. I'm banking on recidivism privileges." A beat passed. Her hand settled over mine, calloused but warm. "You're different lately," she said. "Less haunted." I glanced at the neon open sign flickering outside. "You rewired something." She squeezed once. We both did the wiring. Plates arrived, burgers, fries, milkshakes thick enough to stand a spoon, but food waited. We talked in layers. Her upcoming leave. My half-baked dream of resurrecting the mountain cabin I'd abandoned mid-renovation. Between sentences, the realization landed softly. Life had tilted on its axis since that first flashing red. Later, in the gravel lot under a sky rinsed clean by cold, she leaned against her bumper. "You picked this spot deliberately." "Full circle syndrome," I admitted. She shook her head, amused, incorrigible. "Determined," I countered. She closed the distance. I caught the scent of gun oil and diner coffee clinging to her collar. "That night," she said, voice low, "I was one call away from turning in my badge. Then you rolled up, furious, frayed, unmistakably human, and cracked a joke that shouldn't have landed. It was nothing and everything." Her gaze dropped. I tipped her chin until our eyes locked. "You showed me the credits hadn't rolled on my story." Silence pooled, thick with meaning. I kissed her. Simple, unhurried, inevitable. When we parted, she murmured, "This voids my authority to cite you." "Worth the risk," I said. She laughed into my shoulder, and we stayed there until the stars outnumbered the streetlights. Weeks later, she cashed in her leave, and we pointed my truck toward the ridge. The cabin greeted us with peeling logs and a decade of dust. She surveyed the chaos, rolled up sleeves, and seized a roller like a suspect. We patched drywall, scorched pancakes, and turned sawdust into punchlines. By Sunday, the place breathed again. Fresh paint, crooked shelves, possibility. On the porch at twilight, paint speckled across her cheek. She laced her fingers through mine. "Nobody's buying this as a meet-cute." "Good," I said. "It's not for sale. Just true." She rested her head against my arm. "True's plenty." And it was. The officer who once demanded license and registration now mocked my uneven grout lines and mapped wildflower beds for spring. The hollow echo in my house had filled with footsteps, coffee rings, shared silence. Life doesn't always flash warning lights. Sometimes it sends a person. You just have to ease off the gas long enough to read the signs.